Well, hello and welcome to the Mindset Mentor. I'm Tania Kolar, helping you live your best life. Well, today is an exciting show because we're really going to help to get you going and to amplify your voice. Oftentimes we go through life and we play small because we fear how other people will perceive us and we don't want to sort of outshine other people. Well, today is all about you, my friends. We want you to shine that beautiful, radiant light that is within because it is there and sometimes you forget. So we are here to remind you how magnificent you are. And my special guest today is Tania McEwen. She is an award-winning producer. She is the founder of McEwen Media, and she's up to some really great things. And, it's interesting because we're going to find out in this hour how she went from producer burnout to an incredible, inspiring entrepreneur, finding her voice, and actually also recently winning an award all about amplifying her own voice, which is pretty exciting. So we're going to talk about that. But how about we say hello and welcome to Tania McEwen. Tania, it's so great to have you here on the Mindset Mentor.
Oh, thank you so much, Tania. Can you introduce me like every time I walk into a room? Like that was amazing.
Well, listen, you're amazing. So it's kind of easy, right? To
Yeah.
get that across to people. But I would love to talk to you in depth about how you went from, being this incredible producer to all of a sudden finding yourself in a new place and really a new iteration of yourself. And I think it's like the whole world has evolved and trying to find the best version of themselves so that we can live our best life. So did you ever imagine, Tania, when you were producing and helping other people in the spotlight, that all of a sudden you would be there in your own spotlight, sharing your truth?
Hard no. When I was in the thick of being a producer, I was very happily behind the scenes. Occasionally, I would appear on TV if we needed a guest to fill in, but yeah, very, very happy to be behind the scenes. And I think that was just a through line throughout my creative professional career. I was a shy child, but I always was able to express myself with some kind of scripting. I got into drama in high school. And then when I got into journalism and realized that I could use this creative force that I felt within me and tell other people's stories. And that was very beautiful, empowering, and impactful. And like the interview process it's sometimes it's a spiritual experience. You really connect with someone when they let their guard down and you've guided them there. It's beautiful. It's magic. So I fell in love with telling other people's stories and was in love with that for a really long time. And then as a producer, working with people again, I worked on the Marilyn Dennis show. It was live. So working with people, empowering them with their content, empowering them with their subject matter, and just giving them the confidence boost that they could go on and be their best selves on live television, which is the most high stakes environment you can be in. That was another really beautiful expression of my creative self. So when I started feeling like there must be something else, but I don't know what that is, that was a really, really hard time. And I think that was where I experienced that producer burnout.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you love what you do, but you start to feel like you've outgrown it, or that there's a next chapter or a next phase, it's really, really hard to let go of this thing that you loved and that it's been wonderful for so long. I mean, when I realized this watching, I don't know if you've watched the Beatles documentary that Peter Jackson edited about it's a 4-part documentary series where they show the Fab Four recording their final album. And you can see just the internal struggle between these gentlemen who have been playing together since they were teenagers, just these memories of what it was like to create together and how amazing that is. But then this frustration of, but I need to move on to something else. So I really identified with that. But we don't talk about it very often. So I just thought, well, maybe it's the environment, maybe it's the TV, maybe it's a show that I'm on. And really it was the pandemic. I think everyone got a reset during the pandemic, figuring out how to do TV from home at a time when I was figuring out if I even want to be working in television. It all happened at the same time. And I was gifted with a layoff. which sounds like a funny thing to say.
I love
But
that.
it
Yes.
was honestly, and I shared this story with someone too. The year before the pandemic, I had decided to go freelance. I had no idea what that was, but I knew I needed to connect with a career coach to help me with this. And I knew I needed to save some money in order to give me the bridge to figure out what that was going to be. The pandemic, of course, changed all those plans. But then almost a year to the day when I had made those promises to myself, with the whole company did a massive restructuring. I was let go with a lot of very talented people. So I was very flattered with that invitation. But the severance package included free career coaching and a year's worth of severance. So I thought all the things that I was going to be working on acquiring myself, I'm now being handed this to me. I'm like, there's no clearer sign from the universe that I am meant to take this time to figure out the what's next. So that was brilliant for me. And it was working with the career coach and just giving myself time to figure out. She was the first one to say, you're not a freelancer, you're a consultant. You have decades of experience behind you. You're now going to compartmentalize. You're going to figure out what those skills are, and then you're going to figure out how to sell them and who you're going to sell them to. And that's really where McEwen Media Consulting came about. I just started saying to the world, I'm a consultant now. This is my background. Who wants me? And I ended up working with on-air experts who, during the pandemic, were struggling with getting booked. They were struggling with doing their TV from home, and they were struggling just connecting with the producer. And I realized that there was this gap between the on-air experts and productions that I happily filled. And it's just snowballed to me just representing people who are on-air experts. And we work with them on their pitches, we work with them on their presentation, we manage their careers so that they just get bigger and more confident and stronger as they go along. And the company just keeps getting bigger and more vast in all the ways that those skills can help people.
Okay, I absolutely love this. And it's amazing because when you take action and when you're open, it's amazing how things show up. The
Yeah.
synchronicities line up, things happen. Sometimes we are forced to move into change, but I think
Mm-hmm.
that's all part of the divine plan.
Yeah.
And it's you mentioned that you outgrew that space in an environment that you love. I mean, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people can absolutely relate to that because
Mm-hmm.
there's such fear and uncertainty with moving forward because it's familiar. People
Yeah.
love what's familiar to them, right? It's our
Yeah.
comfort zone. It just feels comfortable.
Yeah.
And
There's
once
also
again,
the fear of seeming ungrateful because I had also, achieved a certain status. There was this feeling like I worked for this. I worked for this position. I should cement my feet here and stay here. Like, what was this all what for? So there's a lot of stuff that works against you when you're in that moment. But once you realize that no, everything has a season. The show served its purpose. And I loved working on the show for a really long time. I'm always careful to say the show was fantastic.
yeah.
But the season had run out and it was time for me to figure out something new. And even McEwen Media itself has had different seasons, and I'm now moving into the next season. So thinking of yourself in terms of seasons has been the most liberating thought for me.
Yeah, and I think you just said it right there, thinking of yourself, right? And
Mm.
as far as those seasons go, and oftentimes we put other people first or jobs first. And so you now were able to put yourself in a position of, hey, this is my direction, this is what I want, and I'm going to go after it, and being open to what shows up. Now, I love what you said. You said something earlier about here's my services essentially, and who wants me. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that you said who wants me because it wasn't a question of does anybody want me, right? We always
Yeah.
have to be very mindful of our language and our thoughts when we're putting out there. And when you believe that there is somebody for you who
Mm-hmm.
wants your services, who needs your services, it's going to show up. But when we have
Mm-hmm.
that fear, it can blind us to the people who are right there.
Yeah.
So I really love that wording. And so let's go back a little bit to that moment of, okay, well, we're now at this space. You've been doing this for so long. Oh, and by the way, there's a layoff, and now that reality that you knew and loved is no longer an
Yeah.
option. So what
Yeah.
what was that initial feeling for you?
Oh, just one feeling? It was all the feelings. I mean, there was, and they happened so quickly. I mean, the first was that shock of, okay, it's finally happened. The thing with corporate layoffs is they're never a surprise. If you're aware of what's happening, you like the rumors have been happening for weeks based on who was getting laid off ahead of me. I'm like, oh no, I think I'm on this list. I'm pretty sure
Mhm.
I'm on this list. So it was, the shock, but then acceptance. But then the funniest thing, because my schedule had completely opened wide, my biggest hurdle, my biggest what am I going to do next question was around lunch. What am I going to have for lunch? When am I going to have it? Even though it was the pandemic and so many things were closed,
Mhm.
because my calendar completely open, wide open, like my to-do list was
Mhm.
completely white clean. I realized how much of my day was spent in service to the show and how it dictated when I did and how I did things. That the idea of what am I going to have for lunch was just that was the first, not even like what am I going to do, how am I going to pay my bills, but what am I going to eat for my next meal was that first experience of anything is possible. Even
Mhm.
in the pandemic, I can have anything. My day can be anything. And that was when I think of that day, that is the feeling that I hold on to the most because I live that way every day. What do I want to do today? How do I want today to go? And just when you start living with that intention, once I had that feeling of my lunch can be anything, I thought I want to figure out how to hold on to this feeling and build a life around this feeling. And I think that's been the through line since that moment.
Yeah, that lunch really represents limitless possibilities,
It
right?
did.
So
Yeah, it
there's no
does.
limit. What do you want? Let's find it. It's out there,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't matter if there's no restaurants open. I will find that lunch.
And I think too,
I
like
love
launching a business, looking for work in the pandemic, like knowing that anything is possible, even in the pandemic,
that. Mhm.
that was a beautiful reality to accept. Like, yeah, the universe was really, really taking care of me that day. It was just that when I ruminated on what happened, just everything, all the thoughts, all the feelings that appeared in that moment are still like it's a huge pivot point in the tapestry of my life.
Yeah, I think that if we look at all of our experiences in life, those big sort of shakeups and the wake ups, there's always such beautiful gifts and lessons that
Mm-hmm.
come from that. And I know there's a lot of people who sometimes think, well, how is there anything good that can come out of our most tragic moments or the most difficult challenges in life? But
Mm-hmm.
if we can stay with it and
Yep.
delve into it, we will find that gift. It's there. It is always there, right? The
Yep.
world is all about duality, right? So
Yep.
the good and the bad, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really is no good or bad, but it's all perception. But it exists simultaneously. So what we're going to focus on, we are going to find. And so
Mm-hmm.
I love that you immediately sort of got it that like there's something incredible here and moving forward and now being empowered to start your own consulting business. You have a wealth of knowledge that you have amassed, bringing such value to people and now to your clients and to the thought leaders and to the businesses that you help to elevate. And
Mm-hmm.
now taking some of that and bringing that into your own being and standing in your truth and feeling empowered, I think is, such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I That's my mission, is to help people to really thrive and to shine. And I love that you are, a perfect example of that. So recently you were a speaker in
I
the
know.
yeah, at the Amplify Your Voice, at the Hinacon Amplify Your Voice with Coach Gabby Mamone. I had the pleasure of seeing all of the speakers who performed for the competition, and lo and behold, the champion. There you are, Tara.
The people's
Tara
champ.
number one, first place. Congratulations!
Thank
And I have
you.
to say, really well deserved. So I want to delve into, first of all, how you curated a talk to really
Mm.
deliver your story, but in a way that really captivated people and felt as though it's like, wow, they were like right there with you.
That's an excellent question. It really, that is the beauty and the gift of being in a coaching program like that. I mean, it was part of a 6 month journey. We started small, we started doing, 90-second icebreaker speeches and impromptu speeches, and then really learned the tools and the tricks of, having characters, having conflict, having a conclusion. But in terms of being open to the ideas, what I wanted to say, what I wanted to use for the signature speech, I was really opening myself up to any and all messages about the storyteller. At that time, I was still kind of struggling with what the McEwen Media brand is
Mhm.
all about. I really only stepped in as the official spokesperson for my own company less than a year ago. For the longest time, I would let my work speak for itself, using air quotes here. I would just post my client bookings and then have that be it. But anytime I had a discovery call with someone, they were like, yeah, those results are great, but what do you do? So the
Mm.
Amplify Your Voice program was really an extension of me just really stepping forward. Who am I? What do I do? What do I represent? So a lot of those questions were happening in the background while I'm experimenting with showing up on social media in video form, sharing more of myself, sharing more of my experiences, and then having that happening in the background while I'm in this speech writing course. So when I realized that I wanted to say something about, do a story about the storyteller, I started mining through, well, how many times have I been a storyteller in my life? There are stories when I was a child, there are stories when I was in high school. But then I remember just the most beautiful interview that I conducted when I was in journalism school. And I was a summer student. And at the time, it was the most difficult interview I had ever conducted in my life. It was this gentleman who was a deep sea diver. He had collected a bunch of artifacts at the bottom of Lake Erie, and the museum was showcasing these exhibits. So I'm trying to get him to open up about the stories of these amazing treasures that are in this exhibit. And he wasn't sharing any of this stuff. And it wasn't until the end of the interview, or towards the end of the interview, that I got him to finally open up and share that he was legally blind and that he had donated those items because he could no longer see them. And then in that moment, everything that I had taken in or even just kind of blindly ignored, no pun intended, changed everything, the meaning of everything that he said, all of the answers that he had given. Things that I thought were throwaway jokes now made completely different sense. Like even there was, when I walked in, there was a phone that had giant numbers on, and I thought, oh, what a beautiful design. I should ask him where he got this from. I would love to have this in my home too. And just all of this stuff. And it was that spiritual moment that you have with someone where they let their guard down. They give you that one nugget of truth that changes everything and shows you who they really are. And to experience that as a young journalist, using these, interview techniques and skills that I had learned just to craft together a story, realizing, well, no, this is actually how I can get at someone's truth. This is
Mm.
actually how I can connect with someone on a deeper level. So that was where I realized this is the story that I need to tell, because that speaks to the overall brand, the overall why of why I do what I do. It's giving people the tools to drop those details, or to reveal those details, I should say, to drop the public image and allow their authentic selves to come through. When you allow your authentic self to come through, especially in a public setting, on social media, on TV, even on Zoom, any screen that we're on, it's that much more difficult to share your authentic self. And there's all kinds of limiting beliefs in terms of how we're supposed to be showing up in certain spaces. But when you do the inner work and you feel empowered to be your authentic self in every level, that is where you're living your truth. So that was where the story of David Stone. I thought his name was Davy Jones. His name was David Stone. That's where that story and the story of that interview connected to what I wanted to say for my overall company and overall brand.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's also a really good lesson of, how oftentimes we can judge, a book by its cover,
Yeah.
right? We have a perceived perception of who we think someone is through, maybe moments of interaction, or even sometimes just through sight. We
Mm-hmm.
immediately sum people up. But when we give people the time to really truly be themselves, it's
Mm-hmm.
wonderful how that can really deeply connect us. And you
Yeah.
can see literally almost like through someone and into their being of the magnificence that they are, because we
Mm-hmm.
all have that inner magnificence. And it's the perceptions that we have in our own minds, the filters that we have is we may block that out. And oftentimes we block it out within ourselves as well. So that's a beautiful story, and an example of being able to just simply be to
Mhm.
be and allow others the opportunity to be without the expectation of you have to fit into this mold and you have to be like this in order for me to perceive it the way that I want to perceive it, right?
Mhm.
So I think
Mhm.
that's a great example. And we're going to take a break here on the Mindset Mentor. You're listening to the Mindset Mentor on Sauga 960. My special guest is Tania McEwen from McEwen Media Consulting, and helping us to amplify our voices and share your gifts. Stay tuned. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to the Mindset Mentor. I'm Tania Kolar, helping you live your best life. And listen, I know life throws us a lot of curveballs, a lot of those wonderful challenges that just show up because that's part of being human. But you know what? We get to bounce with those challenges and we get to move through them because guess what? You will move through them, above them, beyond them, around them. It's just that's the cycle of life. So I want you to stay positive and know that no matter what it is that you are going through, you are not alone and you will get through this. So I want to continue the conversation with my special guest, Tania McEwen from McEwen Media Consulting. She's here today to share her wealth of knowledge as an award-winning producer and speaker, by the way. She recently won an award for, sharing her truth and delivering an incredible story. And in life, we all have our own stories, and we are the actors. We are the center. We are the main character, and we need to own that stage. And Tara, I want to thank you for helping people to own the stage in their own life, right? Because I think, and I know you can relate to this. That I've certainly done this, where we tend to play small. We fear that we're going to outshine other people and we don't want to make other people feel bad. But that's a disservice to everyone, not only yourself, but to everyone around you, because we need to show up as our best selves. When you can put your best self forward, you help other people to thrive and to shine, and you give them permission to also be their best selves. So I'd love to talk about how you help your clients to be the star, that you are a star maker. How does it start, Tara?
Oh my goodness. Well, I love this question so much. I love this theme so much. In terms of how it starts, it really is connecting with how you are in your head right now. So it really is all about peeling away all of those, you mentioned it a couple of times, the fear of other people's opinions. Like a coaching friend of mine has coined the phrase FOPO, which is just the best thing ever. Fear of other people's opinions. Because a lot of times the limiting beliefs that are keeping us small, they're not necessarily toxic. They're not always under the umbrella of imposter syndrome. You feel like you're not smart enough or you're not good enough. Sometimes it is about wanting to be nice, wanting to be liked. This is actually something I'm going through myself right now. So after the Amplify Your Voice recital with winning first place, also winning the People's Choice Award, I've been gifted with so many speaking opportunities now that I'm taking advantage of. And the wheel started turning of, well, maybe I should be a speaker. A couple of my clients have asked me to support them in this space. And I thought, for sure, how different is the world of media going to be from the world of public speaking? I learned from experience, very, very different. It takes a lot of resources and a lot of time to develop those contacts. So I have tried and failed a couple of times to represent my clients in that space, but I haven't let go of the idea entirely. So when I started thinking through, well, what if I then pursue these speaking appearances for me? There are opportunities for me to grow my brand, grow my business, which then creates more resources for me to support my clients and create value for them. It's a great little cyclical way of thinking. And I can do that instead of just wasting or throwing money and resources at building the contact list. And maybe this is how I go about developing a speaker agency. And even like that makes so much sense. That makes a great business strategy sense. Mm-hmm. But as soon as I started thinking through, well, how I'm going to do this, my thought was, well, no, I can't do this. It's not my turn. It's my job to support my clients. I actually have to get my clients booked first before I'm allowed to take this stage. So it's that idea of, well, it's not my turn yet. There are other people who are more deserving. There are other people who are going to be better at this than I am. And I had to stop myself and say, no, when my spotlight is bigger, it's better for my company, which is then better for my clients. That original thought was the right thought. That's the one I need to pursue. What I tell my clients, anything that happens after the word but, those are your limiting beliefs. That's what we're going to unpack and let go of. What you desire is what happens before the word but. But changes
Mm.
everything. But changes the energy of your thoughts and introduces, well, this is where the limitations are. This is where my electric fence is. But there's nothing wrong or toxic with putting your client needs first. I mean, that's also what helped me build the company to this point. But it was just realizing, no, this is actually a way that I can create value for my clients. If
Yeah.
I pursue this career and then use those resources to help them, this is how I can make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And it's interesting because so many people are in that space of
Yeah.
I want to do this, but this could happen, but. And if we even just take that word but and we turn that into an and, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because things can happen simultaneously because it's oftentimes we feel like someone's taken a piece of the pie and then there is no more pie left for us. And I know in my own life, it was definitely a belief that I had, and you said that as well. It's not my turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I've always felt like, and I was the youngest of five, that there's never enough for me. And I would always put other people's needs first because
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like, well, it's in some way, as you say, it's not my
Mm-hmm.
turn, right? Or there's just
Mm-hmm.
not enough. And that was a belief, a limiting belief that was deeply ingrained that I had to unpack and I had to unravel and rework my mindset and to
Yeah.
reprogram my mindset to realize that there is more than enough for everybody. It's there,
Mm-hmm.
the world is limitless,
It
and
is.
there is no taking away from somebody when you shine and when you can be your best self. It doesn't mean that somebody else is now diminished for it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's such a great, lesson to learn that we can be our best selves. We can shine. We can be the star. We can absolutely, elevate our clients and also elevate ourselves simultaneously. It's not
100%.
one or the other. It's not a but. It can be an
Mm-hmm.
and I can also succeed. My clients can succeed. And so,
Yeah.
think about your day. Everybody who's listening right now, I want you to think about this. When you hear yourself saying the word but, now think of what it would just happen and think about if you just added or changed that to an and, how that would change your life.
Yeah. Yeah. A friend of mine refers to it as and land. We're going to live in and land while we're discussing these ideas. I love and land.
Well, and land is great. That's a good
Yeah.
place. That's a great vacation place. But you know
Right?
what? It's a place where you don't even want to just go on vacation and you want to
You want to
stay.
live there.
Interesting. So, I find it fascinating that you said you were a shy kid because, I've met you in person as
Yeah.
well, and you've got this beautiful big personality, and I would never imagine that you were that shy child. So,
Yeah.
how did you find that your familiar or family patterns were
Mm.
sort of guiding you to be that shy child, or what do you think was that sort of catalyst?
I think so. I'm the middle of three girls,
Hmm.
and I realize I don't have children of my own, but my friends who do have children, I realize that two kids are manageable. Each parent can have a child.
Hmm.
Once you get into more than that, the parents are outnumbered.
Uh-oh.
So, yeah.
Look
So
out.
being kind of a shy child, but like shy in like an introspective way. I love reading. I love stories and words. Like I was a reader. I was a daydreamer. My mind is always active.
Mhm.
But being a shy child and the middle of three girls, it just we fell into a pattern where I went along with the crowd. People would speak on my behalf.
Mhm.
Especially with the three girls, we all had the same hobbies. We all did ballet. We all did this just because it was convenient, but it's easy for my mom. Like
Mhm.
it was just her and the car. Like, of course you have to shuttle all your kids around. Like, yeah, there's no we're not blaming mom for this. Like, I totally understand why they made the decisions that they did. It's just easier to answer or speak on behalf of the child who is struggling to find their voice. But it was really when I went to a camp, a sleepaway camp in Germany when I was 12 years old. It was just this random thing. There was an assembly, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you can be with kids all around the world." And I was like, "I'd love to be with kids all around the world." And again, the universe taking care of me. I was one of four children selected from all of Canada to go to this sleepaway camp in Germany. So because that was my first experience of being completely removed from that family dynamic, I had to speak up. I
Mm.
had to use my voice. I had to engage. Like you have no choice. When you go to sleepaway camp, you have to do what everyone else is doing. So it was being in that concentrated environment for a month. That was where I learned how to use my voice, how to make that connection between the thoughts that are running through my head and how to speak it into existence. And when I came back, my mom's like, yeah, you are a completely different child. I got into theater, I got into performing,
Mm.
and really gravitated towards, and I think I'm always gravitating towards scripting and just, it's easier for me to speak as if I'm speaking to a large audience than it is for me to, speak one-on-one. But
Mm.
even then, I think the work that I'm doing with my clients, it's kind of ricocheting back to me. It's actually a lot easier for me now to make casual conversation and network and start conversations than it was even 5 years ago. So yeah, being a shy child, that's not your identity for life. You can always break out of it, but definitely it was that complete separation from that dynamic. Again, fight or flight, you have to speak up. When you're in a foreign country, you have to say, yes, I would like cereal for breakfast. No one's going to eat
Yeah.
it for you. Yeah. It
That's
always comes down to
awesome.
food. It always comes down to what meal I'm going to have next.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's so funny, right? It's like, where's my next lunch?
I do wake up wondering what am I going to have for dinner. That dictates my day.
Well, they do say it's a great thing to plan ahead the night
Right?
before for the next day, right? So takes away some of the stress, right? I love it. So, that's interesting because there's so many people, I think, that can identify with somebody else speaking on their behalf. Parents do it all the time, speaking for their children, and it's just a thing with siblings, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The older sibling tends to speak a little bit,
Yep.
for the younger one. And even I know that they've done studies where, like a second child or third, fourth, whatever it is, doesn't maybe speak as quickly sometimes because they don't have to,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
But
Because
like
they're speaking on their behalf.
and speaking from experience,
Mm.
it wasn't a tragic upbringing. Like I
Mm.
actually, even as an adult, because I love being in my head so much, I would often gravitate towards very gregarious friends who would do all the talking. And
Yeah.
I would just give them more wine. Like, yeah, you take care of all the talking. I just want to sit here and listen. I have no problem. So yeah, as someone who likes to be inside their head, I
Yeah.
had no problem letting people talk on my behalf or letting people talk over me. But when
Yeah.
I need to, that I have the skills and the confidence now to draw on those resources and speak when I need to.
And to have that voice to be vocal,
Yeah.
and I think that's really important. And let's just be clear, anyone who's listening who is a little bit more introverted or shy, that does not mean you have nothing to share and to give. You absolutely do.
Oh.
Everybody does. I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
so much beauty sometimes in the silence and in witnessing and in watching, and you develop your stories, right? But the point is, that we're trying to make here is that, we don't want you to hide who you are, to be your authentic self and whatever that is that feels right to you. And
Mm-hmm.
we all know when things don't feel right, whether
Mm-hmm.
we're suppressing who we are, for fear or other things. But if you just, want to have those quiet moments, that's great. If that is what feels right to you. So trust that feeling in that gut. But if you know that you're blocking yourself in some way, we want to help you to get rid of those blocks and those barriers that are preventing you from being your true, authentic, beautiful self. And we don't want you to hide that radiant inner light because it is such a gift. And there's nobody on the planet that is like you. There's not one person that is even close to you, right? You're so unique that you want to share that uniqueness. And it's a gift when we can show up as our best selves. And so I do love, Tara, that you're helping people to evolve to the next evolution of themselves or their business, and to just help people to shine and to prosper and to be and to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, pushing
Mm-hmm.
our barriers, right? Because it's not easy sometimes to go from what especially if you've been doing it for a very long time, into something different. But when you can push through, it's like that beautiful flower blossoming. It
Mm-hmm.
starts with that seedling and then it continues to evolve, and all of a sudden it's like this gorgeous bloom,
Yeah.
and that's where the magic happens. So
Mm,
it's so important to sort of, I think, stay with that magic and to know that it's possible.
mhm.
So in your life and your surroundings, did you have that belief system that things were possible? And did you know that you wanted to eventually have your own business? I'm always curious as to
Hmm.
sort of, how these ideas start and the evolution of them, because I always find that there's some sort of anchor, in our past or in our childhood that leads us to where we are today.
I think I didn't grow up thinking that I wanted to run my own business. The closest I came was thinking, well, I'll freelance. When I was let go from Bell Media, and my career coach asked me what I wanted to do, the only thing I answered was, well, I want to do a bunch of different things. Like I had spent 11 seasons on the same creative project.
Hmm.
I said, I don't want to spend that much time on the same creative project. I actually do want the freedom to go from project to project to project and just go wherever my creative energy is pulling me. So that's the extent of what I thought of for working for myself. In terms of seeing myself as an entrepreneur and a business owner, that really started happening when, in terms of having the tools to really make it sustainable and build on it, that was when I started working with Hannah Khan. So one of the higher faculties that she really encourages is using your imagination. I've always been a big daydreamer, and learning how to use your imagination as a tool. Looking back now, I'm connecting the dots. When I first came up with a name for my company, I was going back and forth with my career coach, and I said, well, I want to call it McEwen Media, but that makes it sound like it's a really, really big company. So let's add consulting so people know it's just me. But even in that moment, my imagination started playing around with this idea of like an actual building with a company. I'm in charge. I've got a team of people. And like the building in my imagination is massive. Like there's media training, there's offices, there's equipment everywhere. This is the image that comes in my head when I said, well, I want to call it McEwen Media. And that image in my imagination just kept hanging out in the background. And it was really in working with Hannah and her work that I started just mapping out what that looks like as a real thing. And that's where I started seeing myself as the head of a company with departments and multiple service offerings and a team. And it really just started snowballing from there. So I think once everyone has that dream in the back of their head, but they never play with it. But when I started giving myself permission to play with it, that's now my business model. Like that's what I do every summer. Business tends to slow down. Shows go on hiatus. People don't get booked as often. So I just let my imagination run wild. What do I want the next season, the next chapter, the next phase of McEwen Media to look like? And just let that image of the big, beautiful building with all the people creating amazing things. Is this the year that I already have a team? I have people who work with me. I'm onboarding new partners for in the fall to support people with their social media and podcast bookings. Like it's happening. It may not be the specific, glass office building that I see in my imagination, but the imagination has guided me to this point. So that's yeah, I don't know if that's a little bit of a woo answer, but really just allowing yourself to have that dream. That is when I started to see myself as a business owner. I
I
had
love
to
it.
see the business, accept that this image that had popped into my mind, and even circle back with, I kind of want to call it McEwen Media. Okay, it's called McEwen Media. I'm working on creating on adjusting the logo. We're dropping consulting. It's just McEwen Media from now on,
Yes, I
and
love
just
it.
really
Okay.
stepping
Yeah.
into what that initial instinct told me.
Yeah, that's so interesting because you knew
Yeah.
innately that you wanted it to be McEwen Media, but you said, "Well, I just want people to know, it's just me. It's not, a big company." And then there you go. You add the consulting, and that's like our limiting beliefs. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh well, maybe it's not my turn, or I'm not enough. I'm not
Yeah.
worthy enough to have this big company. It's just me. So that's so interesting. But I love love that now it's like, hey, I'm dropping that consulting and I
Yeah.
am going to have it as it's this big, giant global
Yeah.
empire, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you go for it. I think what prevents a lot of people from really having that image and really seeing and visualizing what it is that they want and can create and can have is the fact that they get stuck in the how is it going to
Mhm.
possibly happen? And here's the thing is that you don't even need to know the how. You
No.
just need to know the what. And
Yes.
the why is a great thing. It's nice to if you want to add the why, okay, excellent, then that's wonderful. But the how is none of
None of
your
your business.
I love it. All right. Well, we're going to talk more here on the Mindset Mentor with my special guest, Tara McEwen from McEwen Media. Full stop.
Thank you.
All right. We'll be back after this break. And welcome back to the Mindset Mentor here on Sauga 960. I'm your host, Tania Kolar, and my special guest today is Tara McEwen from McEwen Media. And so just before we took a break, Tara, we were talking about how you originally had McEwen Media Consulting
Mhm.
and that you decided to take away the consulting. And
Mhm.
so I want to touch a little bit more on that because, there's this identity sometimes that is linked to what we believe is possible for
Mhm.
us. And when we're starting a new business or a business, it's sometimes difficult to stretch beyond where we think we are to what we can be or what we would like to happen. So let's touch a little bit again on that feeling of that it was just you
Mhm.
starting this company.
Yeah, and I love how you set that up because looking back, adding the consulting, saying it's just me, I'm not a big media company. Looking back, that looks like a limiting belief, and it's one that
Mhm.
I'm shedding right now. But in that moment, you got to remember, was moving from a position where I was working under these big, huge umbrellas, the Bell Media umbrella, the Marilyn Dennis Show umbrella. So to then now come out as it's just me, that was a stretch goal. Like that took a lot of mental resilience and reserve to stand out and say, this is me. This is everything that I present to you, the world who wants to work with me. Like that was a huge step. So adding the consulting, I feel like, saying the initial reaction or the initial instinct saying I want it to be McEwen Media, but to me, it's like, here's the highest ledge, but this is too far. So I actually need to bring it down to about the midway point. This is where I can leap to at this point in time. And this was about 2.5 years ago. Now I'm at a point where I'm ready to hit the next ledge. I'm ready to drop that. It's just me. I run a media company. I'm not a consultant of one. I run a media company. The next stage is I run a world renowned media company.
Yeah.
That's where I'm jumping to. And but it's important to when I look back at that moment of, it's just me, I need to add consulting. It's very important, especially as you're going through this process of removing limiting beliefs, is to have forgiveness for yourself. That was the right move for me at that point in time.
Mhm.
That was the title for my company that I needed to feel comfortable and develop and grow and move from that position. That Tara from 2.5 years ago made all the right moves. The Tara I am today, I'm making all the right moves now. They're different moves, but they're still all the right moves. They're different seasons. Time has passed. I'm in a different stage right now, but there's nothing wrong with operating under McEwen Media Consulting for as long as I have.
Yeah, that's a really great point because we do absolutely need to have compassion for ourselves and also to recognize that where you are in life is exactly where you need to be.
Yeah.
We all have lessons to learn. We're learning things about ourselves, about humanity, and just everything. And so it's an evolution of ourselves. So those experiences are so valuable. So honor them, recognize them for, for what they can provide in that moment and what you can learn and take into the future and how you can change them if you want or shed them, if you want. So it's really interesting. I know that for me too, I mean, I used to beat myself up like incessantly for the smallest things. It was
Mm,
ridiculous. I had ridiculous expectations on myself. And I know a lot of people listening right now, they're in that space of trying to be perfect. Things have
mm,
to be perfect. I don't want to try unless I'm perfect. And what happens, and then, or if mistakes happen, it's like you just can't get past it. Well, I
mm,
want you to be able to kind of recognize that you can get past any of that. It's a mindset, and we can get
mm,
locked and fixed into a belief that we're not enough or it has to be perfect. But it's in those moments of imperfection, so to
mm,
speak, that really is the catalyst, I think, to some of our biggest moments in life, of
mm,
helping to propel us forward. And to have compassion and to have forgiveness is really freeing. It takes a weight off
mm,
of your shoulders, and
mm.
certainly to recognize that you just don't have to be perfect, is
Yeah.
such a gift, right? Because
Yeah.
we
You
can
move
be
you
so
move so
hard on
much faster. Yeah. You move so much faster when you let go of that perfection. So much time is wasted waiting for that to happen. I feel like if I ever write a book about launching a business, I'm going to call it Launch It Dirty. Everything that I launch, it's a dirty launch.
yeah.
It's just I have an idea, I put it out into the world. This
Yeah.
exists. Who
Yeah.
wants it?
Yeah.
People are very forgiving with beta tests. They're very forgiving with, pilot projects. If you give them a discount, they'll still work with you on it.
Mhm.
But I especially learn by doing. So in terms of having a group coaching program, having a mindset coaching program, I had to work with people in order to understand the specific skill set that I can bring to it. I would never do anything if I just sat with my mind and just over and over and over again and go through all the different scenarios of how I can serve people. If I have an idea, I'll workshop it, give it a name, and then send it out there. Who wants it? I
Yeah.
don't want it. That's it.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. It's in those, sort of crash and burn moments sometimes, right? That are just like, oh my gosh, like you can't even imagine how it just sort of has, propelled you to a completely different level, which
Yeah.
is great. But the key is to try to
Mm-hmm.
put yourself out there, to take action, and the universe rewards action. It could be
Mm-hmm.
the smallest little thing. You don't have to know all of the steps. If you just take one small guided action, it's incredible how the next step will show up, and the
Mm-hmm.
next step and the next step. It's just, I think, a matter of stepping back and allowing that to drop in, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
because it's the resistance that creates all the barriers and the blocks, right? So when you
Mm-hmm.
can free yourself to what is there, it's
Mm-hmm.
just easier to get there.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have just a few minutes left, Tara. So I just want to give you an opportunity to let the listeners and the viewers know how they can get in contact with you if they want you to help them to be a star.
Brilliant. Well, I'm most active on Instagram, so you can follow us at McEwen Media. It's MCEWEN Media, MEDIA. Or you can head to McEwenmedia.ca, book a discovery call through the website. I'm always available. And yeah, there are countless ways that I can help you own your voice and own your story and amplify your experience.
Yeah, because everybody has a story to tell, and that's the
Yeah.
thing is that and it goes back to the gentleman that you were describing earlier, when you were a journalist and you went to his home and you were interviewing him, and you had sort of you thought you had all of the insight into who he
Mhm.
was, and then all of a sudden he floored you
Yeah.
by simply sharing one thing, and then it opened up another sort of possibility and deeper insight. So I think it's important to take that on and know that, hey, wait a minute, let's really stay with something, even just for a couple of moments, to really see
Mhm.
the magnitude of what is possible.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think another I think side theme of that story is when you drop what you think you know, the
Mhm.
truth emerges, because it wasn't like I had collected a lot of data. I
Mhm.
was open to all this information that he was sending me, but that one detail changed everything. So when especially in business, when you drop what you think you know and you try something else, that's where forward momentum happens. Sometimes we're limited by what we think we know, but if you kind of open up some space for something new, yeah, that's where the world of infinite possibilities lives.
Yes, infinite possibilities right here on the Mindset Mentor. You heard it. I want to say thank you so much, Tara. It's been a pleasure having you here. And thank you for sharing your story and helping us to amplify ours.
Oh, thank you, Tanya. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Loving the conversation here. Tune in next Thursday at 3 p.m. for more of your mindset workout. So remember, your mindset is truly like a muscle that needs to be strengthened and conditioned. So you got this. Keep at it and be open to the limitless possibilities that are right there for you.